So I have a second announcement before I open this up for your questions. This morning, my office filed a motion asking the Arizona Supreme Court to set a briefing schedule in anticipation of my office asking the court to issue a warrant of execution for Aaron Brian Gunches. In November of 2002, so just about 22 years ago, Gunches kidnapped a man named Ted Price. He took him to an isolated area of the desert, and he executed him by shooting him. Gunches has exhausted all appeals for his execution at this time, at all levels of the criminal justice process. There is no legal basis to delay this any longer. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the timeline on this case, I want to go over it because I think it's very significant. In 2022, Gunches himself filed a motion requesting the Arizona Supreme Court to issue an, quote, immediate death warrant for his execution. Then Attorney General Mark Brnovich joined that motion, agreeing that the requirements for issuance of a warrant had been met. In January of 2023, Gunches, now through advisory council, asked to withdraw his motion, stating that he would not have requested the warrant of execution had he known of the new Attorney General's plans to pause executions. The Attorney General also filed a motion to withdraw the request that her office had made under the previous administration for a warrant. The victims, however, through their attorney, objected, stating that, quote, the attempt to deny justice and finality to victims under a manufactured need for a review of the protocol by the Attorney General and the Governor is unconstitutional. My office filed a brief in support of the victim's position at that time. Because Gunches had exhausted or waived all state and federal appeals, the Arizona Supreme Court followed the law, and they issued a warrant of execution. However, it was allowed to expire before the execution could be carried out. On June 6th of 2023, Ryan Thornell, who is now the director of the Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Reentry, which I will refer to from here on out as ADCRR, was testifying in front of the Arizona State Senate in order to be confirmed as the director of that agency. At the time, he said this, quote, operationally, the issues, the questions, the concerns that I had as the director have all been resolved. We have gone through all of our review, all of our preparation. We have put the necessary staff in place. We've made contact with the necessary individuals so that we are operationally prepared as of May 5th, and he's referring to 2023, to carry out an execution. The final step that would remain if a warrant for execution was issued is the compounding of the lethal injection drugs, but that has to be timed to the execution period because of the shelf life of those drugs. We engaged then in conversations with the ADCRR, but we learned through those conversations that they had not secured the services of a compounding pharmacist, which would be necessary. Therefore, upon learning that, we did not request a warrant of execution at that time in order for them to have time to complete this step. It was reported in the press that the commissioner's report that was asked for by Governor Hobbs was to be completed in December of 2023. If you recall, in January of 2023, Governor Hobbs had asked David Duncan, who was a former federal court judge, to conduct a review of Arizona's execution protocols. So it was to be done, as it was reported, December of 2023. My office cooperated with his review. We allowed him to interview our attorneys. But then December 2023 came and went, and there was no report. In another conversation with ADCRR in February of 2024, we learned that they had secured a compounding pharmacist. They said, however, that they needed to train some personnel. And based on that conversation, we again waited to request a warrant of execution. 3 weeks ago, however, a letter was sent to the Maricopa County Attorney's office from the Attorney General, who informed us now that the report from David Duncan may arrive early next year, 2025. And in her letter, she said that the executions might resume in the first quarter of 2025. Ted Price's family and friends have waited for 2 decades to see justice and to find closure. I have been patient as the AG and the governor have delayed again and again. But it's been long enough. Ted Price's family has waited long enough. It is unusual for a county attorney's office to request a death warrant. That responsibility is normally shouldered by the Attorney General's office. But you should remember, my office acts on behalf of the state every time we prosecute a criminal felony. My office brought the charges against Aaron Gunches, and my office obtained the conviction. He admitted to shooting and killing the victim, and a jury on 2 different occasions found that a death sentence was appropriate. I am not willing to wait any longer. I've asked the Supreme Court to set a briefing schedule in anticipation of our motion to the court to issue a warrant of execution. So the way this is going to proceed is